Welcome everybody to Moving into the Unknown podcast number 20. My name's Kim McGregor and I'm coming to you from the Gubby Gubby Kabi Kabi lands in Queensland. Today it's our pleasure to have Molly Tipping with us, and I've also got Heidi Carroll, who is my co-interviewer. Hello, Molly.
Hello, Kim. I'm coming to you guys today from Wajak Noongar Budja in Western Australia. And hi,
hello.
Heidi.
Hi. Hello, Molly. Welcome. I'm from far north Queensland here in Gugayimatha, so welcome everybody.
So we're absolutely delighted to have you with us here today, Molly. Molly Tipping, for anyone who doesn't know, is a Feldenkrais practitioner working in Perth, Western Australia. Her first career, Molly's had a couple of careers. Her first career in the early 2000s was as a dancer and choreographer. Her second career has been as a Pilates instructor, and her third and current career is as a Feldenkrais practitioner. Molly's studied and been heavily influenced by body-mind centering, idiokinesis, Barteniuf, I always have trouble pronouncing that word, fundamentals, meditation and yoga. Recently, Molly has trained as a consent and intimacy coach through Betty Martin School of Consent. Molly runs a private practice, a busy private practice, I believe, in North Perth, where she specialises in anxiety and elite performance. And Molly lectures at the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts in the dance, theatre, music and performance departments. So thanks for being here today, Molly. And I think, you know, there's a lot there that you're doing. And what we're interested in is really hearing about what your speciality is, but within that, what it is that in your work that informs you in terms of the Feldenkrais method and the work that you do.
Yeah. Look, I suppose in reality, my specialty is anxiety. Like if I was to be like, have to choose one specific thing, I would say anxiety. And the reason I have gone down the anxiety route is, I suppose, twofold. One, whenever I was in a Feldenkrais class, I would stand up at the end and just feel very calm, very grounded. My head would be clear. I had much better access to an emotional range that didn't feel reactive and that didn't feel kind of like volatile. It was like, oh, I've got all of this possibility. And being a dancer, the movements, although beautiful, I wasn't gaining access necessarily to more mobility. I was gaining access, as you know, Moshe will say, a flexible mind. So I really started to realize that actually the method was going to help me be a better mother. It was going to help me be a better partner. It was going to help me to be just happier in myself every single day. It was going to help me to actually turn up to my life with much more skill and dexterity and to have difficult conversations. Like just that in itself is just something I was like, I want to have difficult conversations in mature ways. And obviously the Feldenkrais method is all about maturity. For me, the thing that interferes with maturity is anxiety. And so I got really interested from a personal perspective of I want to be mature. I want to be an adult. Even if I am 30, 40 years old, I really have that sense that perhaps I'm not really behaving like an adult. And then the second one was that during the training, we learned lots about biomechanics and we learned lots about muscles and bones and all those things really, really important to me. But as I went back to the material, like to Moshe Feldenkrais speaking, to him, his reading, I was like, oh, there's a lot here on anxiety. Like he's written so much about this and yet it was not being sort of like explicitly attended to. And so I was like, right, that's my thing. I want to unpack this anxiety. And I don't just want it to be, you know, one of the things I think that Feldenkrais practitioners do really well is we just kind of include it in everything. So we're looking at it sort of without really attending to it deliberately. But I was like, well, we attend to cerebral palsy deliberately, we attend to stroke deliberately, we attend to shoulder pain and back pain deliberately. We can attend to anxiety deliberately, but we're just going to have to do some, you know, some deep research into that arena. So that became, I suppose, my post-training kind of research area, and I just read very heavily and did Amherst, and just really kind of absorbed what Moshe was saying, theoretically and philosophically as well.
So That's fantastic. So there's a very strong foundation there. So when somebody comes to see you and say they may or may not identify it as anxiety, they might identify it as feeling stressed, which is another form of anxiety manifestation. Can you talk a bit about how you work with people? So quite specifically, maybe give an example or what it is that you do when you work with people where stress or anxiety is an issue.
And look, I think the thing that's really interesting, of course, is I say anxiety and, but as you say, some people say stress. Some people don't even say stress. They walk into my practice and they're like, I can't sleep, I'm agitated, I can't think properly, I'm vomiting, I don't know why. I feel like everything's fine. Actually, I feel like my life is going really well. In fact, I've got everything I've ever wanted in my life. And I'm like, I know. So you're kind of telling me that, and they're like, but I'm not stressed. And I'm like, well, interesting that you sort of don't want to identify as being stressed. And often for some people, because things are going well, or because they've got the thing they've always wanted, then they will discredit the fact that the nervous system is working very, very hard currently to engage in their life. And so sometimes, Kim, people aren't even coming saying that they're anxious or even stressed. They're just coming and saying, I just can't sleep. I can't breathe properly.
They're describing the symptoms, if you like.
They're describing the symptoms, exactly. And that's the thing that is bothering them. And so that's kind of essentially, people will walk in my door. But I would say the kind of a very common client is also someone who's got an injury that is not getting better. And that's because it's not biomechanical. It's now become a nervous system threat experience, and the system has become hypersensitive and hyperprotective. And that's where I'm working when I'm working with my anxiety clients. The reason I say anxiety, I suppose, is because that is what Moshe says. And if I am working in this arena, I want to be backed up by the methodology that I'm using. And the methodology I'm using is an anxiety methodology. And so that's actually what when I say I specialise in anxiety, it's because that's what Moshe says. But yeah, look, if I come back to your question, unless you want to qualify something further, but if I come back to your question about, what does a session look like? Obviously someone comes in and they'll say to me what it is that has brought them in the door. The other thing that's quite interesting with anxiety is that actually sometimes people will come and they will not tell me what has brought them here. They will actually come with a kind of secondary reasoning, but they know that I specialise in anxiety, so they know that I will attend to it. So they may just turn up and say, oh, my shoulder's sore, and sometimes people come and I think, oh goodness, it doesn't even feel like they've got any reason to be here. And as soon as I have that thought, I'm like, okay, they've come because they're anxious. They know I specialise in anxiety and they don't want to articulate that. Not a problem. We work with the person as they turn up. So essentially we'll have a conversation and then we'll see what it is that the client wants to do. And I really have fostered over the years a kind of what I'd call consent and client-led practice, which basically means I am of service for them. I tell them what I can do, what I cannot do. So I really make it clear what my scope of practice is and what my skill set is. And then I say to them, and what would you like from my menu of options? Do you want, I was like, we can do hands-on. We can do voice-led lessons where I talk you through movement. You can sit up, we can stand. We can do breath work, we can do body awareness, we can do movement, we can do touch practices. And I really kind of offer to them what it is that they could choose from. And then they'll say, oh, I'd like to do voice-led and I'd like to focus on movement and awareness. And I just turn up to those kind of interests.
So what might, say if it was voice-led, for example, and doing movements, can you give an example of, a tangible example of something you might do in that situation?
Yeah, so if say wants to do voice-led movement and body awareness, we would start, as long as they're comfortable to lie down, they start lying down, and I'll talk through a body scan. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an ATM, but in private with that person. I'm going to talk through a body scan and just bringing their attention to their body. What is present? What is absent? And just slowly kind of let them sense themselves. And then depending on the assessment that I've made or the things that they've asked for, they might say, I'd like to focus on the shoulders and the chest area. Then we might do some rotational work on our back or some rotational work on our sides. Or we might do some flexion work. So depending on if they want to calm their nervous system or they want to feel more harmonized and balanced, or if they want to feel more alert. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand pick, let's say 1, 2 or 3 little ATMs, and I'm just going to do 5 to 10 minutes of that ATM. I'm going to maybe do the rolling fists, but just the end element. Or I'm going to do the, the hand on the head rolling back lesson when we're on our sides, the chest opening type lessons. And I'm just going to slowly talk them through it. And the great thing about doing a private ATM is I can really sense their nervous system and I can stop when they need it. And we can pause and have questions. How's that feeling for you? What do you notice in your body? And then they talk back to me and then we go again. And it's very, it's beautiful actually, because I work online as well now, much more. I'm doing this with my online clients, and we might do bell hand or tanden breathing, or we might do interlacing the hands. I'm going to just hand pick one little section, and often with anxiety we just do 15 minutes of movement and then we kind of come to an end. So that might be if someone doesn't want me to touch them or if we're working online.
So when you're doing these sort of intimate ATMs, you're obviously observing. And how then do you keep that emotional feeling awareness? Is it just through your questioning and through what they say? How do you sort of engage with them in their emotions?
Yeah, look, so I suppose in terms of if someone has an emotional question, like they're like, I get angry, I want to understand what happens when I get angry from a somatic perspective, then I will be very deliberately bringing in, okay, well, let's look at that and let's look at the flexion posturing or what's happening with the hands, and we might sort of play with it really intentionally. But when I'm doing an ATM, I'm actually going to be dropping back much more into that kind of neutral experience of Feldenkrais, which is gently roll back, feel your weight. Notice how your breath and how your pelvis move when you roll like that. Like I'm going to be in that space because I know that if they want to come into a place of feeling calm in their bodies, I am going to bring their attention to their weight, to their flesh, to their breath, to their bones. That's what I do. And then at the end, Heidi, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say to them, so get a sense of how you're feeling emotionally now. What's the emotion? What's the mood? Who are you in this moment that's standing up at this end of this session? And then we'll spend time there and I'll say, can you get a sense that there are some things that are absent from this experience in terms of tensioning, in terms of where your posture or your gaze is? And what thoughts are present and what thoughts are not? And we, depending on the skill of the client, so in the very early stages, I'm just going to let them enjoy that experience. I'm going to let them really hang out with that beautiful feeling, and I'm going to give them cues to find their way back to that. But as they become more capable, we will come out of that and we'll say, hey, let's go back to that. What is the posture when you're ruminating? What's the posture when you're feeling agitated? Let's go there. Let's see what the difference is. Oh, you come forward. Oh, you squeeze in your belly and your diaphragm gets stuck there. Can you feel? Look what you do with your eyes. Can you sense that? We spend a bit of time and then we go, what can we find our way back to this lovely feeling that we got after having a beautiful somatic experience of being with the body kind of in that really simple way. So it's going to depend on the client's interest, if they want to be direct or if they want to just have an emotional shift.
Yeah, so you're really obviously very client-centered, very consent-orientated. So when, because I'm really curious about the emotional state that
Yeah.
people are sort of enter into. So
Yeah.
what do you think it is? You described yourself, and I've experienced, doing lots of ATM, that settling in your system. What do you think is actually, what are those cues? What are those, actually said, weight? What are those things that people are anchoring on that really is making the magic occur of that change in their system?
Absolutely. So I suppose, and this is essential, isn't it? Because if we're going to work in this arena, we know what it is. We need to know what it is that we're working with our clients. We can't just let the magic happen, because then we're not doing the work that we need to. Like if I have someone who's got a shoulder injury, I have to know how the shoulder works and the spiraling pattern so that it's actually going to feel better. Like I can't just be like, oh, well, I'll just move you about a bit, and hopefully by moving you about, you'll just feel better, because that's not actually what is possible. So one of the things I suppose that we really begin with is someone has to feel settled in their system. They have to feel settled in their body. For so much of the experience of stress and anxiety, we have this experience of coming out of our bodies, of dissociating, right? You can literally ask someone, where are you at the moment? They're like, oh, I'm over here. I'm over here. It's like, exactly. Right, so you're over there, but you're here, right? So can you see that that's going to cause a little bit of like conflict in your nervous system? Because your nervous system wants to be here. It wants you, the self that is paying attention. It wants you to inhabit your actual body. So by just going slowly, Heidi, just by slowing down, lying on the floor, taking a moment to really go, oh, I'm here on the floor in my body. I'm not out there solving the crises of my life, or even trying to solve the crises of other people's lives, because actually it's got nothing to do with me, but still I'm trying to do it. That I go, I'm here, I'm on the floor, I've got permission to do nothing. Permission to just lie here if I want to and just listen to this person natter in my ear. So good. And then I start to find my pacing. When do I want to be active? When do I want to rest? And simply allowing someone to find that within themselves. I want to be active. I want to do this thing. I just want to rest now. And I just feel like not doing anything and just looking at the ceiling and my mind wandering. Oh, now I'm ready to do something again. That ebb and flow between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, we provide space for that to occur. We do orchestrate it in a group class. We deliberately put in rest. But if I'm working privately, I'm literally tracking someone's nervous system and going, and then we come and we take a little rest. But over time, they're going to start doing that for themselves. Yeah, they're going to really be like, I'm going to rest now. And I say things to clients very deliberately like, so I've got another little bit that we can do if you would like to. If you would like to do this next little section that I've got, whenever you're ready, and that can be as long as you want it to be, but whenever you're ready, bend up your knees and I'll take that as a cue to go on to the next little part of today's learning. So that's really about really going with their nervous system rhythms for sure. We focus on the ground. The ground, so good. Most people don't even know they're standing on the ground, honestly. Like they don't have feet. They have no idea that they weigh anything and that there's an earth underneath them. Like, you could just literally do that. They're like constantly over and over and over again. And people go, oh my God, I feel so good. And I'm like, I know, because now you're standing on the ground, or at least you're aware that you're standing on the ground. You were always standing on the ground, but now you actually know it. Focus on feet, honestly, feet, brilliant. Just feet. Oh, hang out with feet. We focus on bones, the weight of the body. We focus on using the big areas of the body to generate movement. So we're really integrating the power centers and the pelvis, the head, the eyes, like people's eyes get locked and then we go, oh, move them. And they go, oh my goodness, look, my eyes can move with my head. So there's these things, I suppose, that we do in the method, but really I'm looking at, can this person feel safe and comfortable in their body? Like, period. That's like, hands down, that's what I need to get happening for them. Can they feel grounded? Can they recognize, can they sense the earth? can they, not dissociate? So I would call this reassociation. Can they associate with their body? Oh, this is mine. Oh, and it's connected to this. Right. And that could be linked with grounding or feeling safe, but it's sort of different as well. I might help people deal with instability. A lot of people who experience anxiety really struggle with instability. So we might do some roller work to actually help them feel more comfortable with movement and instability. We might also do some work for problem solving. So a lot of people get anxiety when they're trying to solve problems. So I'll do some of the constraint-based lessons. I will be like, okay, I'm going to give you a problem and we're going to solve it together. In fact, maybe I'm not going to help you solve it, but I'm going to give you a problem and then I'm going to sit here and speak gently and kindly to you and give you lots of rests. And we're going to see if we can, develop that capacity to problem solve in a somatic experience, which we can then relate to the worldly experiences. So I don't know if I feel like I've gone off on a massive tangent, but
no, that's fantastic.
I'm literally, when someone comes to me, I'm literally going, what are they struggling with, right? It's like the functionality. When someone says, I'm having trouble with my squats, right? Then we can go, oh, what are the biomechanics of squatting? Someone says, I'm having trouble dealing with conflict. Oh, how would I help someone deal with conflict in a somatic way? I'm really struggling to not be a perfectionist. Oh, how do we work with that in the body? Because those experiences show up muscularly. Like everything shows up muscularly. So it's, really about finding the functional skill that we're looking to expand for the individual.
So that's fantastic. I love the way you described that. So thank you. And in terms of feelings, emotions, it sounds like you're doing some really very rich work there. And I was just thinking about, oh, okay, so what's your goal? It sounds like, and I think I've heard you say this before, that it's, people need to be able to have their emotions. And this is really, it sounds like a lot of the work you're doing, it's allowing people to show up in a way where they're not immobilized or they're not paralyzed by their emotions. Can you talk a little bit about that, Molly, in terms of what the goal might be in that regard?
Absolutely. So look, I suppose I teach a lot about the nervous system to the students. So there's a lot of theory that I'll teach to my university students about the nervous system. And we learn a lot about the biological reflexes and responses. And one of the things that I say to them is that actually, we're born with a sucking reflex, we're born with a stepping reflex, we're born with these sort of responses and reflexes in the architecture of the nervous system and brain. But we learn to coordinate our mouth and our tongue, and so that then we don't need the sucking reflex anymore. And we learn to walk, so we don't need that stepping reflex anymore. We learn to coordinate our body in all these beautiful ways. And so actually, what we want to really recognize is that the fight, the flight, the freeze, the shutdown responses, they're all built into the nervous system as very quick ways to protect ourselves when we're feeling threatened. Or to remember that the fight response is not actually even necessarily a threat response in the way we might think of it. It's like a hunger response. I need to fight. I need to chase down my dinner to actually get my needs met.
So about survival in a way.
Yeah, it's survival. And most animals in the wild don't die of being eaten. They die of starvation. Like that's the reality, right? And so, we think about the fight and the flight as we're having this threat response that's to someone attacking us. And certainly that's part of it. But actually, we're also having threat responses to not getting our needs met. Yes. Right? To being like, oh, I've got to get the money for the house. I've got, that's real. You need freaking money. You need a house that's stable. And that's the fight-flight response in response to a need. I need it. So what I'm really interested in is recognizing that these responses are in the architecture of the nervous system. That is what is there.
Yep.
And we might have a bias. We might be someone who runs away, or we might be someone who like shuts down with overwhelm as our way of responding. But still, it's not a mature, diverse, like nuanced response to life stresses. And what we're actually really interested in is, can I have a flight response, like something about leaving situations that are stupid, about leaving the party when we're tired, I just need to go now, about leaving a job, that is actually not helpful for us. Now, we might need to stay in that job. So how do we then eliminate the flight response of, I've got to get out of here, I've got to get out of here, but we go, actually, this job right now is the right job for you. So how do we help that nervous system to firstly de-excite that stress response, but secondly, how do we build up your skill to be in situations that are difficult? And I can do that. I can give someone a really difficult Feldenkrais lesson repeatedly, and we can learn to be in difficult situations. What resources do we have in our body? How do we meet our frustration and go, oh my God, I hate this. I hate the teacher and I hate the lesson. Yeah, you hate your job. You hate your job, and yet this is the job you have. And when we think about it, it's the job that you need to be in. So I can literally take a real life situation, put it in, but ultimately I'm looking at those stress responses and making them more nuanced, creating pauses and then creating choices in how I act in those moments. And I'm talking years. I'm not necessarily saying, you do one or two little, things, and then suddenly you're responding to threat, in mature and amazing and dexterous ways. No, but like we recognize over the apprenticeship of my life that I can actually become much more eloquent, much more generous, much more thoughtful in the way that I turn up to the things that really bother me, the things that are really causing my nervous system to, this is, like we can't change if the nervous system is feeling threatened. It's just feeling threatened.
Yep.
But we can learn to read our nervous systems, and we can learn to de-excite it if it's a little bit overactive, or excite it if it needs a little bit of waking up. Yep. And then we can actually build skill in the same way that we build skill in our cerebral palsy clients. How do we build skill so that you can take weight on your hands? How do we build skill so you can look around and shift the weight and mobilize? Like it's literally like that. In terms
of, is that potency? Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, I suppose, look, I don't necessarily use the word potency, but then The Potent Self is probably the book that underpins everything that I do. Yeah. So definitely I think it's about, for me, it's maturation. And I often talk to students about our apprenticeship, in our, to become an adult, or our apprenticeship in maturation. And I like to think of that because for me, it feels very process oriented. Where am I in this process of becoming the human I want to be in this world? And I suppose maybe potency is something that maybe already is the ideal.
Yes.
Which is lovely and useful, but I'm not very good at hanging out with ideals. I find that they can narrow our focus too much. So I like this idea of the apprenticeship. Where am I on my apprenticeship? What can I do? What am I struggling with?
Yeah. So it sounds, I mean, I love what you're talking about, because it sounds like it's really like the Feldenkrais method is. It's giving people that agency. It's giving people, people become empowered where they can recognize, okay, it's okay for me to have this, this emotion. In fact, it's really important. If I'm doing a presentation, or I'm going in to have a difficult conversation, or I'm doing an interview, or whatever it is, and I'm feeling stressed, rather than becoming immobilized or crippled by that, I can be aware of, well, what do I do in my body, and what's more empowering for me to do in my body that actually allows that energy to propel me forward and do whatever it is that I'm doing. Is that sort of
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting because I've realised I didn't quite answer your question, which is, very easy for me to do. But
you've just got so much to talk about, Molly.
Exactly, so many things, squeeze them all in. So one of the things I suppose is that, yes, in the beginning, a reflex or a response is very rudimentary, very global. The whole body does it. And it's sort of like we have this immobilizing response. We go into that immobilized response. Now, what we're interested in is to go, well, can we, say if you go into a stress response, it could be, can you be in that tension? Can you be in the posture, but then soften your low back and your belly?
Yep.
What movement have you got? So yes, you're feeling a bit flexed, but maybe you could move a little bit from side to side. So, for some people, there's this thing of I feel like I, withdraw into myself, so I need to push myself out. And it's like, well, maybe not yet. What about if we just withdraw into ourselves and then we just have a little shimmy, with ourselves, and then we maybe even just do a little bit of turning and then you might find actually from the turn that you can come forward and it's so much more gentle, it's so much more kind of compassionate and connective with other people rather than, oh no, I'm feeling trapped in this experience, I need to do the opposite. Then you're still holding tension really, aren't you? So we go into it and we see what's possible, what tension can we let go of. So a lot of the time I would do this very deliberately. Let's go into the anxiety posture, feel the tension in the body, don't change the posture, don't change the eye line, don't change anything about it. Change the activation of the musculature. Change how much tension you're holding. Now bring the tension back, bring it back, and then take it away. Let it go away. See if you see what you can change. Bring the tension back. In fact, increase the tension more because it's actually about recognizing, you said agency, recognizing we have control, we have some capacity to change our tension. So before we even change posture, let's change tension.
So what I hear from you, Molly, is I'm loving this, that I think that if we're stressed and anxious, for example, we want to feel happy and joyful. And, we want to go, something in our human mentality is we want to go from one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
But there's something beautiful in what you're saying. It's that getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, that you're actually got so much more in between. That's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. And in a sense, we're trying. So initially we have the one experience. Oh, I'm trapped. And then we do the binary, the opposite. Neither of that is the level of maturation that we want as an adult, is it? So actually what we're looking for is, yes, we might feel trapped sometimes. But if we just hang out here for a moment and just go, I'm feeling trapped right now. I'm feeling like life is just shit, isn't it? Like sometimes life is shit. But then I can actually just sort of get comfortable to go, well, okay, so life is shit. So maybe I can just sit back in my chair for a minute and be like, I have no idea what to do. Oh, well, may as well just hang out here and look out the window. And then I'm immediately starting to bring myself out of that stress response anyway. And I might just sort of start, I could shift the weight on my pelvis and, maybe just sort of get a little bit of movement happening within the kind of constraint of what's going on. And then be like, well, could you be happy here? See, one of the interesting things that we also recognize often is that sometimes flexion people associate with being unhappy and they associate extension with happiness. And so we might literally actually go, well, when have you been in flexion and you've been happy? Like when you've been cradling a little baby, or patting your kitten and your puppy, or you've been, sitting back in the lounge chair on your holiday, just being like, yes, nothing to do. No one to come and talk to me. That actually flexion is beautiful and delightful and so nourishing for the nervous system. And so we can just go, well, let's just hang out here for a bit. And then, that actually sometimes in extension, that can be quite an intense place for us to be. So what we're really looking for is, like if we were doing flexion extension with a client, is really going, okay, so what do we associate with feeling happy and feeling good in ourselves, and what do we associate with feeling anxious? And then just playing with rolling forward and back and just noticing those places where those emotional experiences come up. Oh yeah, there I feel a bit, like I'm being a bit bolshy here, or I'm being a bit exposed. I feel so exposed here. And then we go, oh yeah, cool. And then, we might be like, well, let's hang out in flexion. And can we feel small here? Can we feel downtrodden? Can we feel exhausted here? Can we feel relieved, contented, and loved here? So that we start to expand what flexion might mean for someone. And then we just find, well, where do you want to be now? Like, you don't need to sit upright. Your mum and dad might have told you need to sit upright, but you're not a child anymore, and you get to make your own decisions. So what feels good in your body? And as you say, really, and Kim, you said this as well, really, like, I am so comfortable as a practitioner. I am so comfortable with a wide range of emotions that when my client turns up and they're sad, they're angry, they're anxious, I'm like, I've got room for that. And they're like, oh, I feel like it's okay to be sad around you. And I'm like, yeah, it's totally okay to be sad. It's great to be sad sometimes, isn't it? We learn so much when we connect with those tender emotions and those tender parts of ourselves. It's like where the wisdom, the human love is in sadness. So yeah, let's hang out here. Or we can come out of that too, or anger. It's like, yes, I'm passionate. I need that. I want it. I need to work out how to get it. Yes, let's do that. Let's work out how you're going to get that. And let's be, active and physical and forward with our needs, with what our wants and our desires, and then be like, okay, but maybe I need to come back as I think about that a little bit. Okay, now, so it's giving people permission to go, you're a human being, and happiness is so boring as the only emotion you're ever going to experience, and you will never meet yourself or others authentically if you're just trying to be happy all the time.
So I like this idea of maturity now, because what I can see in watching young children, I'm a school teacher, and little preppy kids, their emotions run from one side to the other. There is nothing in between. So that definition now for me of maturity is being able to visit all those places along the way forever. Molly's giving me the thumbs up.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And this is what I mean. If we think about emotional maturity in the way that we think about biomechanical maturity, when a child first learns to walk, they're just like this sort of forward falling creature, right? So that's great. That's the first part of learning to, walk. But then they have to learn to, be able to moderate their speed. And then they need to be able to learn to turn around, or turn walking into dancing, turn walking into ice skating, turn walking into, skiing down a mountain or whatever. So I think the thing to really recognize is, let's take that same lens that we apply to the biomechanics, to the development of movement, take that exact same lens and apply it to the emotional maturity of the individual. Knowing that we start with these threat responses, these biological threat responses, and we've got them in our nervous system whether we want them or not. We learn about the reflexes, the foot reflexes, or we learn about, the orienting reflexes biomechanically, but there's reflexes and responses that are emotional and protective and nurturant. And my interest is, what is the repertoire that gets us toward, finding instability? Really, I understand instability because I understand counterbalance now. Or I understand grounding because I recognize my weight and my organization over my bones. Or I understand how to deal with conflict and problem solve because I've practiced it in these small little ways kinesthetically.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the two sides, the physical and the emotional. It's beautiful. Molly, when you talk about working with people and working with their feelings and their emotions and anxiety, you mentioned the nervous system quite a bit, and I know that it's an important part of your work. Can you talk to that, please, just in terms of the nervous system and Feldenkrais?
Yeah, look, I think, I sort of tend to consider myself, like a movement specialist, but I certainly have started to kind of think, well, actually, I'm a nervous system specialist. Because ultimately, for me, when someone's walking in the door, I'm really interested in what state their nervous system is in. And that's just on a general sort of perspective. Like if I hand them a glass of water, are they so thirsty that, thanks so much. And I go, ooh, really sympathetic, right? Or I will change my space. So I'll make it very dark, or I'll increase the warmth in the room. I will adjust the space to suit their nervous system. So I'm really checking in with where is their nervous system at and what does it need? Because in the beginning, Kim, the thing to recognize is that a lot of those emotional perturbations are also coming up because the nervous system is just like not happy. Just like normally, like it's just in a threat kind of state constantly. So I want to just firstly go, let's see if we can draw the system out of the threat response that it is in. And that will be through lighting, that'll be through letting them choose, that'll be through the temperature of the room. Like my space has a beautiful window that looks out into the world, into the distance, and so people can come in here, and sometimes I'll even just kind of leave them and they'll just look out the window for a few minutes, and then I'll come back again. So I'm letting them settle and acclimatize to the space, because nervous systems, you have to remember, when I'm talking about a nervous system, I'm talking about environment. Your nervous system, our nervous systems are millions of years old, and they only evolved because of the environment being changeable. And that the temperature, the light, the distance of what we see literally triggers different experiences in the nervous system.
Okay.
Right, so I have bones because there's gravity. I have eyes because there is light waves. I have ears because there is vibration. I have a nervous system because the world is constantly changing. And so what I'm looking for in terms of with my clients, in terms of the nervous system, is going, where is their nervous system in harmony or in conflict with the wider environment? And firstly, I'm going to try and harmonize both of those. I'm going to bring the environment to their experience of their internal environment. So I start off by really going, let's make the world match them. Okay? Because as soon as I do that, they're going to feel settled, because suddenly they're congruent with the space they're in.
Sorry, Molly, can you just explain what you mean by matching the world to them? Is that changing the environment around them? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm going to change the environment around them.
That's the light thing that you're talking about.
I'm going to make my room dark, or I'm going to make it bright. I'm going to change the temperature of the room. I might change where the bed is in the room to help them feel like they are matched to this space. So as a practitioner, I'm deliberately changing the external things so that their internal nervous system, or their nervous system, their internal environment goes, oh, we're matched. Like sometimes when you're really stressed and you have to go to the ocean when it's windy and wild, and then you're going, yes, now I'm matched with the world. Yeah. Ah! It's like you have to almost find the environment that allows you to relax into the actual experience you're having. And so when somebody say, you got to relax, it's like, no, you need to go to a wild environment where the wind is like attacking you and you're being whipped by sand and you've got this like, the waves are like almost trying to kill you, and you go, yes, now I can relax. Because that's actually my internal experience anyway. So that's what I'm trying to do. I don't obviously, whip them with sand. And do things like
No,
that.
no, that's really clarified it for me, and I've got personal experience exactly the same.
Totally,
And
we all do.
because people, yoga and all the mindfulness stuff, it's like just go to your breath, and it's like that's not helping.
Not gonna freaking help. It's making it worse.
Yeah,
So if I have a
sometimes
client
that's
who's
right,
really
yeah.
stressed, I'm like, go to the ocean and just fight with the waves and just like scream at the horizon line. You got to match.
Perfect,
You got to
thank you.
find the match.
Amazing. So, okay, so I was going to say.
So in terms of what,
yeah.
did I answer your question? I don't know. But here's the thing. So you said, how do I work with the nervous system? How do I work with the nervous system? That is absolutely deliberately what I am doing, Kim, all the freaking time. Okay. So I'm definitely doing that. I'm working with my nervous system. Right? So I have a very subtle adaptability of my nervous system, right? I can literally, like get excited really quickly, and I can drop down really quickly. So I really drop myself to meet the client who walks in the door, or I raise myself to meet the client who's walked in the door.
Yeah.
And
so you're matching with your own.
I'm matching them with my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I match them first, and then I take them on a journey of where they would like to go. So if they would like to calm down, then I can travel that journey with them and bring them into a calmer experience. But my skill with my nervous system is very, very subtly, sort of accurate these days. So I can really be like, drop into parasympathetic by being flexed and relaxing the muscles and dropping the eye line, and have a yawn and really drop. So I can just literally do that. Or I can be like, okay, wake it up, muscles active, blood to the limbs, blood to the brain, breathe in, get busy, and like this is obviously positive experiences of sympathetic and parasympathetic, but I'm still able to do that really quickly. So if a client comes in and they're quite agitated, I'm like, well, maybe they want to sit down. We're going to like walk around the room. We're going to chat. We're going to we're going to be hanging out here, because actually they can't even sit. So we're off. We're going. Like, what's going on? How's the weekend? So I'm going to meet them in that kind of excitation of the sympathetic system.
And also, I guess that can also give them. As a psychotherapist, we do that where we mimic people's non-verbals. Which gives people awareness, but also, as you say, can help to settle them. But it sounds like, Molly, it's not necessarily about we're wanting to settle your nervous system, because you were also talking, there's different options. There's perturbation.
Yeah. So the thing to remember is that in the beginning, people often want to have their nervous systems calmed down. I would say, as a general rule, the people who first come to me are like, I'm frazzled and I just need to like calm down. And I'm like, yep, we can do that. Right? So it's definitely one of the skills that they need to develop. And it's one of the gifts that I can give them. I can give them the gift of experiencing their nervous system calming down. But that is not the only thing that they need. Like, that's just like an elementary element. They need to find, enjoyment in instability and movement. They need to really understand how they deal with problems. They need to sort of actually turn up to the world and be skilled in it. Deal with conflict in beautiful ways. How do we be, like in our side bending when we're having like a difficult conversation with someone, that we're not like, I'm going to stab you. It's like, oh, I might going to stab you, but then actually maybe I'll just change my mind on that. And I might stab you if I just need to. Moshe has that beautiful saying, we need to be able to caress and to kill.
Yeah.
Right? That's the spectrum I'm working with.
Yes.
I am working across that spectrum. I want my clients to be able to like reach out and attack life in the way that they want to.
Well, if I'm having a difficult conversation and I need to be assertive,
yes,
I need to be in a different state. I need to have that's what you're talking about?
Absolutely. If someone's not paying you, You can't just be nice all the time. You're
Mm.
like, I'm going to escalate this just so everyone's clear. I'm going to escalate it to the next level. Just, yep. And I'm going to escalate it beyond that. So you just need to know that I have absolute comfort, absolute ease in making it clear to you that you are meant to pay me. It's quite simple. And I can be nice about it in the beginning, but if nice doesn't work, what are we going to do? Oh, they didn't pay me.
Yeah.
I feel angry, but it's like, no, they didn't pay me. I'm going to go above them because they're not listening to me, or whatever it is that we are in life. And it's that thing, permission to kill, right? So, maybe not killing. I'm probably not teaching people how to kill, but like
No,
metaphorically.
Well, I watched your body then, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Oh, if I'm wanting to have a conversation with my boss about being paid, and I go, oh, I really need to be paid, they're going to continue and no one's going to listen to me. Whereas what you did was you came into a bit more extension. So it's giving people that awareness of, when I'm having that conversation, this is what assertiveness is, because perhaps I wasn't able to be assertive as a young child.
It's a skill, isn't it? And in the beginning, we might be a little bit too assertive. We think, oh, it's probably a bit aggressive then. But did you get your needs met? Yes, you did. And as you go through your apprenticeship of life, you will be more and more subtly skilled at getting your needs met without attacking someone else. But that takes time. And the other thing as well, if we think of that spectrum of caress and to kill, so some people are really happy in the kill space. They're actually not anxious there. They're anxious in the caress space.
Oh, yes, right.
That is so fucking scary for some people. So scary, right? But if you're going to then be a mother and you're anxious in the caress space, your anxiety is going to come up, right? And so we have to build up that capacity. If you want to be in an intimate, loving relationship, like, the caress question is going to come up. And so this is one of the reasons I've gone into doing more consent and intimacy work, is actually our anxieties do really, there's big anxieties around how I am with myself, my body, and then, let alone just your own body, how do you take your vulnerable body and be in connection with another vulnerable body? That's big anxiety, skill development needed there.
Thank you.
So you mentioned, Molly, about the nervous system, and obviously we've got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic.
Yes.
Autonomic. So I guess what I'm hearing, is this right, that I'm thinking what a healthy nervous system is like, and is that just being able to go between the two? Is that what it, or is there a state where you can go in the middle? Do you have to be, can you fully go into one, or can you go partly into the other? Can you describe what that healthy nervous system is like?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a few stories. When you take your dog to the park and you throw a ball for your dog will chase that ball and chase that ball and chase that ball. And it's just like fully in its sympathetic nervous system. It is running with all its glory, chasing that ball. And then something happens where the dog gets tired, right? And then the dog doesn't bring you the ball anymore. The dog goes off to a tree and hides, right? Because he knows, or she knows, that if they bring you the ball, you're going to throw it and they're going to have to go and get it, right? So animals have healthy nervous systems in a way more than we do, because they almost can't ignore them unless they're being punished, and then they ignore them. But a dog will just run, excitedly, energetically. They'll start to get a little bit tired, and then they just go and have a rest. Human beings are weird, because we're like, I'm tired, I need to keep going and going and going and going and never rest ever, because resting is somehow illegal. It's like, well, no. Like, a healthy nervous system is active and then it rests. It's active and then it rests. And we are needing to ebb and flow between sympathetic and parasympathetic in our daily lives. Comes a little siren. Can you hear that? There's some police chasing down someone.
Nervous system alert there.
Nervous system alert, exactly.
Yes.
Meow, meow,
Find your potency and maturity, people. So are you saying, I'm thinking then an unhealthy, well, I don't know if we want to define it that way. Okay, so I have to give you a
few more options, right?
Okay.
So there is just the normal day-to-day nervous system, and when we are able to be active and rest in ways that are honouring our own nervous system rhythm, then we are much healthier, okay? The second aspect of a healthy nervous system is that I can actually interact with it. So I can actually shift my nervous system into a parasympathetic state. I can shift it into a sympathetic state. So instead of having to match the environment to my nervous system, I develop skills that no matter what the environment, I'm able to exist in that environment comfortably. Right, so this is what Moshe talks about. This is this emotional nervous system maturity, is that no matter what is going on in the world, I can actually turn up to that and match it. I can shift my internal environment to be in that space. So, yeah, so it's sort of about the dexterity in the same way that I can mobilize my body so that I can, do all kinds of things. Can I mobilize my nervous system so that I can be in conversation with you, so that I can have a rest? I'm not sure if Moshe talks about this. I'm sure he does. But, an animal is like asleep, like passed out, like, a lump of like soggy, bones and skin. And then they like spring up, fully like alert, leap off, chase a mouse. And then they come back and just be like, oh. Right? Moshe wants us to be able to do that. That the excitation of my nervous system, the like, I've got to chase the mouse, does not change. That in a moment after that, I'm back sleeping. So that's an incredibly dexterous nervous system.
I'm going to practice that.
I know. It's so
Chasing
good
mice.
though, Kimmy.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. If I do it, I literally go, okay, so if I'm a cat and I've gone to bed and I'm feeling a bit still, excited, my question then becomes, well, can I just be a cat? And just be like, blah. Fall asleep when I want to.
Love it.
I'm certainly seeing your performance background come in for all the glory. And
look, when I did dance, Heidi, many of my teachers and students said to me, are you sure you're not in the right are you sure you're in the wrong program? I feel like you should be in acting.
But it seems like what you're saying, it feels like we all need to be able to jump into those different roles.
Absolutely, we do. And so this is the thing, yes, I specialise in anxiety, but this work, you can see why I work with performers. This is essential in high performance spaces. And I've got lots of clients who are in high performance spaces, either as, sort of like public speakers or they're athletes. It's like that thing of like, actually, we need to be able to choose what is happening, not just be at the mercy of this experience. And that being said, sometimes I'm like, well, actually, I am feeling agitated and I am just going to go to the ocean and fight with those waves. I'm going to not change this. I'm just going to go and find the environment that's going to welcome me. Now I'm going to go to my favorite cafe and hook into the little corner and just drink my cups of tea and my biscuits, So it's sort of about, for me, it's about both, learning to actually change the environment. Some people with anxiety are not good at changing their environment. They're like, oh, you mean I'm allowed to change that? I'm like, yeah, you can change that. I'm allowed to choose where I lie down. Yeah, you're allowed to choose. Oh, okay. So they might not be good at changing their environment. And other people are terrible at changing their internal environment. And as Feldenkrais practitioners, we are skilled at the broad range of changing our internal environments. So I have a whole raft of skills that I can share with you about how we change our breathing, how we change our movement, And, during the training, the trainers say this all the time, but it's not maybe as explicit as it could be in some ways from a nervous system perspective or an anxiety perspective, is the room changes. When you do a really quiet ATM, the room changes, right? Well, pay attention to, so the room's changed. What have you done to the internal experience of the people in the room? You've shifted them into a different nervous system experience of self. Let's hang out with that and let's ask questions about what that is. What has happened that means you're in this experience? And then the room's filled with like laughter and chatter and all these things. And it's like, what has happened? Really sense yourself. How are you different? Not, oh, we did this amazing lesson and now we feel really happy, because then you have to do the lesson to feel happy. And I don't have 45 minutes to like do a lesson to feel happy. Like, it might be that in the beginning, I'm going to do these 45-minute lessons that are much more playful and much more sympathetic, because I'm going to build up that capacity. But I can't be doing a 45-minute lesson before I go on stage. I can't be like, I'm walking down the hallway and all of a sudden I meet someone who I'm like, oh my God, we used to date, and like, how am I going to talk to you? Like, I go, okay, quick, what do I need? Is this love and compassion? Do I need to just like breathe and relax? Or do I be going, oh, hi, and they just sort of like walk past, kind of, hope you're doing great, can't speak to you. Like, what are we going to do in that moment? So it's sort of like the spectrum, isn't it? Of like, we spend time really developing, and then as we get more skilled, we can do it in quicker and quicker ways.
Amazing. I just feel like going out in the world and just playing with all of this.
Absolutely. It's so,
it feels like we're becoming familiar with Feldenkrais, that you know how to move your shoulder differently, but you're giving us so much more options and how we can be in the world differently, how we can...
Well, yes. So even the other day I was working with a client, and very anxious client, and a lot of anxious clients hold so much tension down their whole torsos that they're like blocks. Anyway, and we were playing, and she found her shoulder blades, And then she was like, oh, this is really fun. And I was like, yes, shoulder blades are quite playful. Like, oh, I don't know. Oh. And so then we're like, actually, you connect with this childlike playfulness of the shoulder blades. When I'm serious, they're going to get pinned to my ribs. I'm serious. They're stuck. I don't have shoulder blades if I'm serious. I don't need them. They're not essential, right? So then it's like, so if I want to be serious, I'm going to have to just like tuck those shoulder blades away. I'm serious. I'm very serious about what I'm going to say to you. Or if I want to be playful, it's like, I need some shoulder blades. I need some ribs and a spine if I'm going to, So that's what I'm doing. I'm unpacking the musculoskeletal, and I'm mapping it more very deliberately along the emotional or the qualitative states that we inhabit in the world alongside that experience.
Well, we just love what you're doing. You are completely inspiring. So when you were first found that calm emotional state, that you knew something was affecting your nervous system, you were able to start working with it and start being curious. You could know that you were disconnected at certain places. Some people were disconnected from their bodies, and that's really evident, I think, in the way people operate in the world. But you've now given us some really specific ideas. We know this happens in Feldenkrais, but you've explained how it's happened and why it's happening. Places to anchor, like slowing down, being grounding, going into our bones. You've introduced that idea of people being able to engage with their environment and change their environment, so that can then help balance their nervous system as well. I love this idea of maturation, that we've if you can picture that child that's going from one range of emotion to another. As a mature adult, we want to be able to find all those amazing, beautiful nuances in between, and you're helping us understand that. We're able to then be in these different places and then engage in the world in the way we want to do. It seems like you're being able to give people so many choices. it's and the healthy nervous system, that we can go where we want to choose, that we can go through these ebbs and flows of the natural day, that we're not lying about awake, that we can go into that calmer state. But then if we need to get up, baby's crying, dog's barking, whatever, we can change that because we have got the maturity. So Molly, thank you so much. Can you tell us your website so that people can go and refer to you? Because I think that people want to see what else you're doing.
Yes, so tipping motion, which is my last name, and then motion at, actually, what is it? .com.au. tippingmotion.com.au. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Molly. It's been wonderful. Thank you,
Molly.
Heidi. Thank you, Kim.
It's been a delight. Thanks so much.